Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a great Friday. As you watch this, this will not be morning anymore, but just wanted to, throw that in there. Anyway, today's going to be a flea market find, and it's going to be one that, it's a 1987. I got this a few years ago at a flea market, actually, down in Indianapolis. But this is an Indy car set, and I really haven't had a chance to give Indy cars any love here on the channel. But this is a factory set from A&S Racing. You know, it's a very plain box. You see the people at the flea market had the booth number and the price, $3.50. I don't think I paid that. I think they had some kind of discount that day. But nonetheless, these are 50, 50 card sets. And sometime when I get through a lot of my cards, I'll pull some other ones out that are very similar to these. A&S had sets in 84, 85, 86, 87, and I believe 88. And it looks like I may be missing a few cards in this set. But at any rate, I'll just go through and skim through these. And this may have been a set I busted open to get some stuff autographed. So if that's the case, then that's on me. But anyway, you see here we have Bobby Rahal. He was the 1986 and 87 IndyCar Championship there with his wife. Of course, his son Graham races in the IndyCar Series today. A lot of these are horizontally oriented, so I don't like them. The backs of them are very nice. Has the driver, the card number, their rank in the standings, and then their finishes throughout the year and a little bit about them. So I always found these cards very nice and very informative. There you see Mario Andretti and the late Tom Carnegie. Tom was a fixture at the Speedway as the PA announcer, public address announcer. Steve Chassis, he was just kind of a journeyman driver, mostly ran Indy 500, but he did run a lot of other just at random races. Tom Sneva, nicknamed the Gas Man. He had a pretty long career from, I believe he started in 75, and his last race I know was in 92. I know he ran in 92 and had a really good run from the Menard team. Jeff Brabham. Jeff was one of the few IndyCar drivers that participated in the first Brickyard 400, which was 26 years ago yesterday. There's Emerson Fittipaldi, a Formula One champion that came over to IndyCar in the mid-'80s and became an IndyCar champion, retired because of a back injury suffered at Michigan. I believe that was 1997 when that happened. Dale Coyne just announced that Dale Coyne's IndyCar team will be helping Rick Ware Racing, who's a NASCAR team, field an IndyCar team for the upcoming 500. And yes, it's not May. The Indy 500 is being held in August this year because of the events of the world. Don't want to say the wrong keywords and get my video flagged. Excuse me. Gary Bettenhausen. Him and his brother Tony were longtime drivers of the 500. There's Alan Sr., the second four-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. His final win, he won in 70, 71, 78, and 87. You have Rick Mears, who's a four-time winner. He won in 79, 84, 88, and 91. Next is Roberto Moreno. He was one of the many Brazilian drivers that raced in the 500. He was pretty good, just never had the equipment. I think the Gallus Racing team, which he is pictured here with, was the one that he had the most success with, but just never really had an opportunity. Scott Brayton, who was killed tragically in practice in 1996. 96 or 97, I'm pretty sure it was 96. Yeah, 96. He was actually the pole sitter for that race, and Danny Ungaius was tabbed to take over the car, and I believe Danny had to start 33rd and brought the car home in 8th place. Then this is just kind of a checklist that they have. A very nice checklist. A.J. Foyt Jr., don't really need to say much about A.J. there, as his record says it all. The first four-time winner, 61, 64, 67, and 77 were the years that A.J. won the 500. Phil Kruger was another journeyman driver. He had serious injuries at Michigan in 1984. Jan Lammers, I think he may have been from the Netherlands. Let's look and see where Jan was from. Yeah, Holland. So Jan was just one of those up-and-coming drivers. He later became an analyst for ESPN and did really good with them. Ed Pym was a journeyman driver. He raced a little in IndyCar, a little in NASCAR here and there. Ran for Mike Curb's IndyCar and NASCAR teams. Michael Andretti, he's the son of Mario and the father of Marco Andretti. This is when he was driving the Craco team. I can't remember who the owners of the Craco team were. They eventually merged with Gallus when Bobby Rahal drove for them, but this is where Michael would get his first career win in 1986 at Long Beach. George Snyder, long time. He raced pretty much Indianapolis, but he was famous for racing in sprint cars and midgets and dirt cars all around the Midwest. We have Mario Andretti again. Spike Gelhausen, he was just another journeyman driver that just ran mostly the 500, but would run any other race when he could get the finances to do so. A Lone Star JR from, obviously, Texas. He was a 3-time winner of the 500. I know he won the 500, his last 500 win was in 1980, where he famously gave Rookie of the Year Tim Richmond a ride back to the pits when Tim ran out of gas on the last lap. Mike Nish was just another journeyman driver. I don't know a lot about Mike, but I remember the name. Kevin Cogan. Kevin was a very polarizing figure in the IndyCar series. A.J. Foyt had some less than unkind things to say for him in the 1982 500, as did Mario Andretti when he started the huge crash at the start of the race. Don't know if something broke or what happened, but he was on the front row and took out about 3 or 4 cars. Jose Ligarza, one of the Mexican IndyCar drivers. He started in the early 80s. He ran through most of the 80s. Not sure if he retired due to injury or just lack of funding, but he was always very, very competitive, in his best career finish was second in Michigan in 1986 to Johnny Rutherford. Tony Bettenhausen, Gary Bettenhausen's brother. We talked about them. Rick Muskiewicz. Rick was just another one of the independent or journeyman drivers that would pick up rides whenever he could. Pancho Carter, the 1985 Indianapolis 500 pole sitter. Pancho's dad, Dwayne, was also a fixture at the Speedway for many years. Pancho raced IndyCar. He has one win, 1981 Michigan 500. Arie Luyendyk, whose first career IndyCar win came in the 1990 Indy 500. He also won in 1997. He was always a very, very popular driver at the track. Al Unser Jr., obviously son of Al Unser Sr., also a 2-time Indy 500 winner. 92 and 94. He beat Scott Goodyear at the time in the closest finish. It still may be the closest finish. Dennis Firestone. It's always odd to see the name Firestone racing on Goodyear's, because the IndyCar team did race Goodyear tires. You can actually see the Goodyear tire patch right there. Dennis was just one of those drivers that showed up, had enough money to make races, but honestly wasn't very competitive. It was just the equipment, not necessarily a driver. Raul Boesel never won an IndyCar race, but was always mixing it up front. Very aggressive driver from Brazil. Dominic Dobson. I believe Dominic made some Truck Series starts in 1996, but again, he was one of these kind of race here, race there guys. Danny Sullivan, 1985 Indy 500 winner, famous for his spin and win. Also raced in Formula One in the early 80s. Derek Daly. Derek raced in Formula One, also came into IndyCar racing. His son Connor races in the IndyCar series currently. But Derek suffered 2 badly broken legs in 1984 in Michigan in a very serious crash. His crash and Rick Mears' crash at San Air Speedway in 1984 with badly broken legs led to IndyCars to redesign the nose of the car. At the time, the driver's feet actually sat in front of the front axle, and then in 85 they moved the driver's feet behind the front axle and greatly reduced the amount of leg injuries moving forward. Ian Ashley was another journeyman competitor, as was Randy Lewis. Don't have a lot of information about them. Jim Crawford in 1988 had a strong run at Indianapolis. I believe he came home 6th, led some laps that race. He was driving a really strong Buick. I believe it may have been a Menard also, but ran super strong, but just never had the funding to run consistently up front. We've talked about Rick Mears a little bit. Johnny Parsons was a longtime fixture at the Speedway. His father, Johnny Parsons Sr., I believe it was the 1958 Indy 5. It was in the 50s. I know it wasn't 55, but it was somewhere in there that Johnny Parsons Sr. won the 500. Dick Simon, who later would be a car owner as well as a driver. I mean, he was a car owner at this point, but he would later go on to usually run 4 or 5 cars. Jacques Villeneuve. This is actually the brother of F1 champion Gilles Villeneuve. Did Gilles win a championship? No, I don't think so. But he has a namesake nephew who would win the 1995 Indianapolis 500. But this was Jacques number 1 who won at Road. Now this is really coincidental. In 1985, Jacques Villeneuve won at Road America in the IndyCar Series. In 1995, his namesake nephew won his first IndyCar race 10 years later at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. So that's a bit of a coincidence and a little trivia. Roberto Guerrero. His first 4 Indy 500 finishes was 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 2nd. So it was 84, 85, 86, and 87. He had a crash practicing in Indianapolis in September of 87. He was in a brief coma, came back to race later in 88. I believe he actually came back and raced later in 87, but it was never the same for him. Desiree Wilson, one of the first women to attempt to qualify. Of course, Janet Guthrie was the first, but Desiree never made the field for the 500. This was at the time was the fastest front row in history, left to right, as Danny Sullivan, Rick Mears, the pole sitter, and Michael Andretti. There's the 86 winner, Bobby Rahal. You don't see him in the picture, but his car owner, Jim Truman, was suffering from cancer and would die a few weeks later. Mario Andretti, who was a Pocono 500 winner in 87, also the 69 Indy 500 winner. There's the 86 Michigan 500 winner that we spoke of, Johnny Rutherford. And the Bettenhausens, Gary, Merle, and Tony. Merle had a crash where he actually lost a hand and couldn't race anymore. But there's the Bettenhausens with their father, Tony Sr., who passed away at the Speedway back in the 60s. So there you have. This is not the complete set, unfortunately. It looks like I am missing a handful of cards. I believe that I'd taken some out to get signed when I went down to the Indy 500 Legends Day a few years ago. So apologize, this couldn't be a full set, but it gave you an idea of what the A&S cards looked like during that time. And they really didn't change their design much from this, from 84, 85, 86, or 87. I do want to find some of the other ones because at the Hardys here in Central Indiana at that time, they produced some A&S cards that were very similar to those, but had a coupon, a terrible coupon at the bottom that you could get free drinks and sandwiches and stuff at Hardee's during those times. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little change of direction. Still racing, but a different form. But once again, we'll be back later this afternoon, and we are going to start the hobby box, our final hobby box of our early birthday gift from my wife. So we'll start opening this hobby box later this afternoon. So come back and watch us later. Thanks again. See you tonight.